Hi friends. In the early 1970s, if you'll remember, interest rates were held artificially low by the federal government. Well, then what happened? Interest rates and therefore inflation skyrocketed into the late 70s and into the early part of the 80s. This particular shift from low interest rates to high inflation, high interest rates drastically affected savings and loan banks. If you'll remember the S&L crisis in the 70s and early 80s. Well, we see a similar pattern today as we did in the 1970s. So to be clear, we think there's more banking problems ahead, but this is not 2008. In 2008, we saw a widespread, almost an epidemic of credit crises and markets seizing up. This was a contagion event in 2008. That is not what we see in the current bank environment. But like the early 70s, the Federal Reserve and the federal government have held interest rates artificially low from really 2008 through 2021. So to put it plainly, while interest rates were low, banks got stuffed with money and deposits, and they were required to pay a very low interest rate on those deposits. Well, the federal government also skyrocketed their debt at the time, and so now the rubber band has snapped, and so banks have massive quantities of monies that are losing value either by inflation or by their negative correlation to interest rates. Remember, when interest rates rise, the value of bonds goes down. So not only are banks seeing the value of those deposits go down, but simultaneously, because of the federal government policies and the actions of the Federal Reserve, they're having to pay more money on those negative net capital deposits. In the 1970s, this essentially plastered the S&L banks in the country. So this is particularly impactful to small, local, and regional banks. And so you've got a situation where the federal government created this by keeping interest rates artificially too low and by printing money, therefore skyrocketing the national debt, and then by causing inflation because of the other two policies. Well, what are they doing? They're now creating an additional policy. And some of those things have been, are they going to insure all deposits instead of just up to 250,000? Are they going to come in and buy back bonds at par from these banks to keep them solvent? The government created the problem, and now they're creating policies to fix the problem that they created. Really, it's just kicking the can down the road. So we think right now the stock market has said no big deal to this, and we think that the market in general is overly optimistic to the effects that inflation, interest rates are going to have on small and regional banks. Ultimately, this is not 2008, but we see more problems coming in the banking sector because of the very things that the Federal Reserve and federal government did, and that now they're acting like they're the hero riding in on the steed to save the day. Bigger government, more policies to fix problems that they created is not a good long-term solution. So stay tuned. More banking issues likely coming, but this is not 2008. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.